Welcome back to my channel. What we are going to talk about today is quite possibly one of the most shocking and controversial topics that I have ever presented before. What I am going to show you today is evidence of real-life giants that roamed around America, and some of them stood at over 8 feet tall. This will be an exploration into the fascinating yet forbidden world of forbidden archaeology and the discovery of real-life giants that have been suppressed by mainstream archaeologists. We are going to start this journey with what is considered to be the birthplace of man, Africa. There are several accounts of people coming across giant human remains while mining or digging in the ground. Some of these supposed remains were so large that they had to be carried in wheelbarrows. Other times, giant bones were found sticking out of the ground and were simply too large for any normal person. Of course, this evidence was never taken seriously, and all of these accounts were written off as mere folklore. But what if there is more to these stories than we know? Moving now to South America, where legend has it that a race of giants once inhabited the continent. The Yanacocha culture, which existed in Ecuador between 3500 BC and 500 A, is said to have been home to giants who stood up to 12 feet tall. Despite their immense size, these giants were apparently peaceful and spiritual people who lived in harmony with nature. The evidence for their existence can be found in the many petroglyphs and artifacts that depict humanoid figures with exaggerated features, such as elongated skulls and disproportionately large limbs. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss these depictions as merely symbolic representations of deities or ancestors. However, the sheer number and detail of these images suggest that they may actually be based on real historical figures. But enough about other places, because I'm sure that you are curious to hear about the giants that are said to have roamed around America. In North America, the Hopi tribe is said to have been home to giants who stood up to 9 feet tall. According to Hopi tradition, these giants, known as the Mashungnu, inhabited the region around the Grand Canyon and left behind evidence of their existence in the form of giant footprints and petroglyphs. Again, mainstream archaeologists have dismissed these claims, attributing the giant footprints to natural phenomena and the petroglyphs to simple tribal art. However, the archaeological record in North America contains other intriguing evidence of giants. In 1961, construction workers in Colorado discovered a human-like skeleton that was nearly 8 feet long and had a massive skull. Although the skeleton was found in a layer of sediment that was dated back 5,000 years, mainstream archaeologists refused to believe that it belonged to a giant. Instead, they claimed that it must have belonged to a diseased modern human who had been misidentified. They also claimed that the bones had been planted in the area by someone trying to perpetrate a hoax. Then in 1912, a team of Canadian archaeologists unearthed a megalithic mound near the town of London, Ontario, that contained a human skeleton that measured over 7 feet in length. This skeleton, nicknamed the Giant of Lemon, was so well preserved that even its skin and hair remained intact. Despite the overwhelming evidence that this skeleton belonged to a giant, mainstream archaeologists claimed that it must have been a fraud. They accused the archaeologists who discovered it of having planted the skeleton in the mound in order to attract attention to the dig site. Now let's move down to Mexico, where legend has it that a race of giants once inhabited the country. The Aztecs are said to have been home to giants who stood up to 10 feet tall and possessed supernatural powers. According to Aztec mythology, these giants, known as the Huitzilopochtli, were skilled warriors and rulers who led their people to great victories and prosperity. Evidence of their existence can be found in the many codices and artifacts that depict humanoid figures with exaggerated features such as elongated skulls and disproportionately large limbs. These depictions are remarkably similar to those found in South America, which purportedly depicts the Anacondas. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss these depictions as merely symbolic representations of deities or ancestors, but the sheer number and detail of these images suggests that they may actually be based on real historical figures. One particularly disturbing piece of evidence is the so-called Piedra del Bacal, a basalt slab that was discovered in 1938 near the Aztec city of Tula. The stone monolith is covered in a variety of glyphs and symbols, one of which depicts a giant humanoid figure with a bird's head. This figure is shown wearing a loincloth and holding a shield and spear, suggesting that he was a fierce warrior. The figure has bird-like features may represent his connection to the supernatural, or his ability to fly, or perhaps both. Mainstream archaeologists dismiss the giant as merely a mythical creature, but others believe that it is a realistic depiction of a real-life giant who lived among the Aztecs. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence for the existence of giants in Mexico comes from the ancient city of El Tajin. The city was home to a large, pyramid structure known as the Pyramid of the Niches, and it was here that archaeologists uncovered a series of giant footprints. These footprints are approximately 1,000 years old and are much larger than any human footprint. In fact, they are so large that they would belong to someone standing 8 feet tall. The discovery of these footprints was reported in 1938, but mainstream archaeologists quickly dismissed them as forgeries. They claimed that the footprints had been carved into the rock deliberately in order to attract attention to the site. However, the discovery of these footprints was witnessed by several credible individuals, including the Mexican archaeologist José García Payan, who was in charge of the excavation. He and his team carefully documented the footprints and even took plaster casts of them. Despite this, mainstream archaeologists have refused to take the discovery seriously. They claim that the footprints are nothing more than the product of pareidolia, the human tendency to perceive meaningful images in random patterns. But this claim is disputed by many who argue that the footprints are far too detailed and precise to be the result of pareidolia. Furthermore, there is no evidence that anyone ever tried to carve the footprints into the rock. Let us know in the comments below if you think that these footprints really are proof of giants roaming around in America thousands of years ago. And finally, one of the most famous pieces of evidence for the existence of giants in North America comes from the famous King Tut's tomb. While excavating the tomb in 1922, Howard Carter and his team discovered a number of artifacts, including a small wooden model of a human-like figure. The model was incredibly detailed and was crafted with such precision that it is considered to be one of the finest examples of Egyptian craftsmanship. However, it is the figure's appearance that is truly remarkable. The figure is shown wearing a long white robe and has a small beard. Most striking is the figure's head, which is disproportionately large and elongated. The head is almost twice the size of the body and has a strange, almost alien-like appearance. This artifact has caused much debate among mainstream archaeologists. Some believe that it is merely a stylized representation of an Egyptian pharaoh. However, others believe that it is a realistic depiction of a real-life giant who lived in Egypt thousands of years ago. Proponents of this theory point to the figure as elongated head and body proportions as evidence that it is not a pharaoh, but rather a giant. The theory is further supported by the fact that similar elongated skulls have been found in various parts of the world, including North and South America, Europe, and Asia. These skulls are typically much older than Egyptian artifacts and suggest that the practice of cranial deformation was widespread and intentional. If you're enjoying this content and want to see more like it, make sure you check out my other videos on hidden history and archaeology. You can click the link in the description below to see more. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future uploads. Thanks for watching.